Do you remember the Crazy Good Pop Tart commercials? Most commercials are simple. They don't connect to one another, they aren't super dark or crazy, and are just made to sell a product. The thing about the Crazy Good Pop Tart commercials are they aren't just self-contained little ads to sell Pop Tarts, but over 100 individual commercials connecting to an interconnected, dark storyline of war and revolution. These ads are easily the craziest, most in-depth piece of anything I have covered on this channel, with concrete, undeniable proof of a hidden storyline in plain sight. Trust me, if you liked my Bubble Guppies theory, then this one is even crazier. This is the Pop Tarts Crazy Good theory. See, after watching Alex Bell's Cocoa Puff video, I wanted to see if I could find my own breakfast food commercial lore. And oh boy, did I find something. The Crazy Good Pop Tart commercials began in 2004 and instantly became a classic early 2000s commercial that ran all the way till 2018, where the commercials had fully toned live action and the tone had became a little different. We'll cover the newer ones a little bit, but mostly I want to talk about the animated classic Crazy commercials, which all center on a single thing: children brutally torturing and eating sentient Pop-Tarts.
This thing working?
Oh, it's working.
Yummy, 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 yummy.
The lengths these ads will go to show the most sadistic ways of a Pop-Tart being eaten is beyond anything I could imagine. But the more interesting thing is the world these ads exist in. It's one with a complex political system, one with celebrities, except they're not actually celebrities, but are fake ploys to lure the Pop-Tarts into a sense of safety. This world is entirely built and run off the massacre of these living breakfast pastries, and it's so weird. Except, it's not always like that. Sometimes there aren't any sentient Pop-Tarts, and these few but very interesting ads reveal so much about the lore. See, in these commercials, there's always something weird going on, just there aren't any sentient Pop-Tarts. It's not about hunting Pop-Tarts, it's about a Pop-Tart genie, or it's a guy finding a kangaroo who stole his very much not alive mini Pop-Tart. This made me question, where do the Pop-Tarts come from? Like, it's not like they're grown in a lab and mass-produced to horrible slaughter, punished with the curse of life by a soulless corporation, right? No, seriously, they're not. Well, kinda. Let me explain. See, throughout this entire series, there are many strange references to a possible origin for the Pop-Tarts. But in these commercials, there's always sentient Pop-Tarts in it, which means they already exist. But because there are a few outliers where they don't, it made me look for a solution in them. And I think I found one in a commercial called Pop Artica. In this commercial, one of the crazy kids summons upon a genie from Magic Toaster. Now, this genie is also a Pop-Tart, which I wish I had an answer to. There's definitely a weird underlining deeper storyline with this guy and why he's a sentient Pop-Tart, but I simply can't find it. But I did find something else. See, the crazy kid wishes for a singing lizard, which he gets, and he's actually a main character in the entire series, and is also somewhat nice with the Pop-Tarts. So that's his origin story. The interesting thing is his second wish. The kid wishes for the biggest, best Pop-Tart in the world.
I want the biggest box of Pop-Tarts in the world!
This would mean, logically, that box and the Pop-Tarts inside it are the biggest Pop-Tarts in existence, meaning this would be the first big, well, we can presume genie magic sentient Pop-Tarts ever. I would also like to assume that these Pop-Tarts are so good, they literally are driving people crazy. It's in the name. I presume they're so addictive and make talking animals and these kids go to such lengths because they're literally magic. We know they're actually addictive, not just because of the efforts people go to get them, but how when people even look at them, their eyes go mad with hunger. This single commercial gives a direct origin to the Pop-Tarts and is a building block of this entire theory, but that only scratches the surface of how weird these commercials get. See, when watching them, I had a running question: who is funding these kids? If you watch any of the commercials, they are doing insane, elaborate schemes that sometimes take months to pull off, from faking political campaigns to an entire Survivor parody, except the contestants are kidnapped Pop-Tarts. These kids have infinite money and resources. I can excuse them not having parents on screen because it's how the world works. The meta reason of kids connecting with kids eat Pop-Tarts in commercials, kid eats Pop-Tarts in reality, just works. But I can't get over what they're actually doing. So I did some digging, and oh boy, did I find so much. Let me explain. See, there's a certain series of ads that are all basically a weird parody of Survivor on a random island, except the contestants are kidnapped Pop-Tarts, and there's an added threat of many children who want to eat them alive. Lovely. The more interesting thing, though, is who is running this little reality show. There is a narrator announcing competition, and the interesting thing is, the Pop-Tarts can hear him.
One desert island. We're trapped! We'll never make it! We're never gonna make it!
Hello.
Make that fall, Pop-Tarts. Who has what it takes to stay alive?
Not him.
This means that the narrator speaking is speaking inside the actual Pop-Tarts world, and that's interesting because what he says after this.
You can see what happens next only at PopTarts.com.
This now acknowledges that Kellogg and Pop-Tarts as a company exists in this world, which is even more apparent with the boxes of Pop-Tarts being literally everywhere and Kellogg being stamped right on them. So I think Kellogg may be the ones behind this. Let me explain. Okay, this is my theory. I think Kellogg is a company in this world that produces Pop-Tarts. We know these Pop-Tarts in return Kellogg would have to exist for way longer than their real world counterparts due to the genie looking like one, and more importantly, the nation that is a stand-in for the US being called Pop-Artica. This also means that Kellogg is running the government in this world, which explains how they can stage a fake election just to torture some Pop-Tarts. The fictional Kellogg company, of course, not the real one. I'm making zero claims that the real world corporation of Kellogg is torturing living beings, just to make clear, because I don't have a Morton sponsor to cover my ass. This would also mean that Kellogg, because they're obviously even more powerful in this world, they're definitely super rich, would also to mean they could fund these weird little saw traps. But that made me question, why? Why is Kellogg funding these kids? And what do they have to do with these sentient Pop-Tarts? Well, I think I have an answer. Think about it. These sentient Pop-Tarts are basically how this entire world operates, with everything in it centered around them. This is probably because they're unnaturally addictive when eaten, to the point it doesn't even matter if they're alive or not. There are multiple commercials when a big Pop-Tart is done toasting, they cut them in a little mini Pop-Tarts, put them in a box, and then eat one or two. This would mean that Kellogg is most likely repackaging these big Pop-Tarts into little ones by cutting them up, and because they're so addictive, the other people in this world are buying them. We know this world isn't just kids, as there are certain later commercials like the election or the winter tournament where we see crowds of people all loving Pop-Tarts. So Kellogg probably is profiting heavily off these magically addictive, limited supply of magic Pop-Tarts. So they probably aren't a big fan of them running out. So what do? They start to experiment. We can see throughout these Crazy Good ads many examples of what we can presume Kellogg trying to recreate the Pop-Tart, whether it's Frankenstein experiments,
It's alive! It's alive!
or a single ad that broke me in many different ways, but also showed even further their tests to try and replicate the magic Pop-Tart.
Chiku Chiku! He so has your peanut butter.
Well, he's got your jelly.
Time for a feeding.
Told you it was horrifying. Yeah, so at first this commercial may actually hurt my theory. We see what we can presume evidence of living sentient jars of peanut butter and jelly being the parents to a baby Pop-Tart. But if you think about it, I don't think it's actually that simple. In the clip, we see a nurse who is of course the evil black-haired girl eat the baby. That would mean they have no care for if a Pop-Tart is a baby or not. So how will what we can presume adult Pop-Tarts grow up in a world so uncaring unless they started out magically adult? My theory is these jars of sandwich ingredients are somehow magically brought to life, similar to the one of many Frankenstein-style experiments that Kellogg has done, and Kellogg is testing that they can naturally produce a magically addictive and sadly sentient Pop-Tart, and then the crazy kid eats it to see if it worked. It makes way more sense that this is a testing experiment by Kellogg with what looks like human children next to the baby in the hospital, which with how unkind this world is, I doubt they would like that. The thing is, all of this worked. In a later commercial, we see a baby Pop-Tart which looks identical to the previous one that gets eaten by the same black-haired girl, this time as a babysitter. They feed it peanut butter and jelly even. If you look at this from a semi-meta perspective, this would be around the time they were launching the peanut butter Pop-Tart. So it's almost like these ads are literally showing in-world Kellogg experimenting to create the unholy sentient abomination. This all made me question one thing though. Who is behind this? Sure, it could just be an unnamed, unseen Kellogg higher-up, but what if it was a character in the commercials that was actually behind all of it, or at least at the top? Probably not one of the kids, though the black-haired girl definitely is a runner-up, but she just seems more sadistic and too harsh to wait out for the long, tedious process of all of this. No, they're just one of the butchers. There's someone more cunning, more patient, and intelligent even behind this. Someone who even the kids respect. Who? The Green Lizard. Okay, so at first you may seem a little confused. You're saying, Noah, I thought you said the Green Lizard was a friend and an ally with the Pop-Tarts. Well, let's just say I simplified the truth. In reality, the lizard is just as cunning and well hungry for Pop-Tarts as the kids or animals. The difference is he's playing a long game, and even the Pop-Tarts seem to be fooled by his tricks. Let me explain. The lizard is a weird character who started out from a simple wish. Now, technically the wish could have summoned the lizard, not created him. Either way, it doesn't especially matter. It more matters who the lizard is after. Most appearances of the lizard have him being in a place of power, even above the kids. But usually by the end, he'll use that power to get some Pop-Tarts.
Nominees for Best New Artist are Blue Raz, Chocolate Straws, and Cinnarol. And the winner is...
There is a running theme of the Pop-Tarts being friends with the lizard even when they know about the kids. Some commercials have the Pop-Tarts unaware of the kids' tricks, but others have them in fear. But even in those, the lizard is on their side until he quietly takes them out.
They're gonna eat me! Hide me! Hide me! Hide me!
They'll never look here.
Where'd that strawberry go?
Thanks.
Too easy.
So this made me question, why? Why is the lizard above the kids even though there are way more of them and he's just another animal which in this world are talking Pop-Tart living beings? Plus, why is he always involved with anything related to something political or anything highbrow society? He literally was the mediator for the election of the United States stand-in and also is in charge for a renowned Pop-Tart music group and is apparently a celebrity himself with fans in the millions according to him. He even towards the end of the commercial is just a straight up stand-in for Kellogg.
You got served, Hot Fudge Sundae.
The lizard has to be directly tied and higher up at Kellogg. While the kids I can believe that are simply Pop-Tart hungry kids who Kellogg is using, this guy has to be the one behind this. He is benefiting heavily from it. He gets infinite fame and fortune, and most importantly, as many Pop-Tarts as he wants, which according to his words, is all a lizard can want.
He said, do it for the money. And I told him, okay. That and I get all the Pop-Tarts I want. Lizards dig the Pop-Tarts, baby.
These commercials aren't silly little advertisements for Pop-Tarts. They are an intentional story of corporate control, mass experiments all ending in death, a story of war and revolution. These Pop-Tarts are in pain and suffering from the... Wait, why is a Pop-Tart eating another Pop-Tart? This is a world built on eating Pop-Tarts, but we have never seen another Pop-Tart even think about eating another one. Even in this sick world, that is straight up cannibalism and definitely isn't something Pop-Tarts do, right? Well, there are a limited, about 3 or 4 times when a Pop-Tart, for some reason, eats another Pop-Tart. The first one is an ad where 2 Pop-Tarts are freezing, what I can imagine is a real freezer, but it could also just be a cold place, and they're gonna starve to death if they don't find some food. So one Pop-Tart looks at another, and this happens.
We need food. But what?
The only thing I can say to excuse this is he is starving. It's what he had to do to survive, cruel as it is. But if you look at his eyes, they have the same crazy expression that kids and animals get before eating. Is it possible that the Pop-Tarts themselves could experience the crazy good effects just like the kids? We see in another commercial a Pop-Tart walk into a room with a bunch of other Pop-Tarts, and there's this weird gimmick going on where they can see what is in their stomach. I read it off as this world is magic and there's just literally talking Pop-Tarts on screen, but the more interesting thing is how they react to what's inside him.
Hey, guys.
Oh!
Oh, why?
Oh!
Why? What's the matter?
printed fun Pop-Tarts with jokes.
They are horrified by this, so you could presume even if they are affected by the addictive properties themselves, they still see it as a severe taboo. But you know, these two clips are old. Maybe they're just outliers. Except in a newer ad, we see the Pop-Tarts do the unthinkable. It's found in the election run where there's a news crew digging around the truth of these candidates and finding scandals, and well, one is very interesting. A Pop-Tart toasting themselves. And this is what they have to say about it.
Breaking news, 2 presidential candidates caught toasting themselves. Chocolate Chip was quoted as saying, "Everyone loves the smell of fresh baked goods."
It is simply confirmed by all 3 commercials that these Pop-Tarts experience an addictive smell or taste of themselves, and while taboo, it is a deep-rooted habit many of them experience. But this trail of commercials led me to another one that revealed even more about this story. In the commercial, a Pop-Tart is auditioning for a Pop-Tart commercial or a horror movie where they're running from someone trying to eat them. The interesting thing is the Pop-Tarts filming them and what they say under their breath.
Let's see what you've got.
Please don't eat me. Please, I'm begging you. Don't eat me. Oh, no, I'm too
Beer! I need beer!
No, don't eat me. No.
Thank you. Very hot cinnamon roll. You're gonna be very hot indeed, yes. Cue the toaster.
It may be hard to hear, but they just said, bring out the toaster. These Pop-Tarts are working for Kellogg. If this is a commercial for Pop-Tarts, then it's made by them. And that means even some Pop-Tarts are in on this sick, twisted ploy. It makes sense. They don't get eaten. They live maybe more comfortably. And they like Pop-Tarts themselves. They have an infinite supply. And they don't even have to toast themselves. Well, this story is looking bleak. If you haven't noticed, it's been non-stop Pop-Tarts are eaten by humans, then lizards, then themselves are experimented on, are being tortured. It's just pretty depressing. Well, what if I told you it was a little more interesting? See, after watching all these ads, I started questioning a few things. Why are there Pop-Tarts celebrities and political leaders in some ads, even if a ploy by Kellogg, but in others, they're fully aware and actually trying to lead an escape? These commercials seem to almost be out of order, and once I found the real timeline, it unveiled a hidden storyline of war and revolution. Let me explain. At first, you might assume there's a clear timeline based on chronological order to these commercials. And you know, I would think the same until I realized the overwhelming evidence of a different, but way more clear timeline. There are many commercials scattered throughout the series of Pop-Tarts being celebrities and being tricked into believing they're equals. I'm gonna place these at the start of the timeline, with the only things behind it being the genie and anything where sentient Pop-Tarts definitely don't exist. Now, there are also commercials where the Pop-Tarts are definitely in the know about all of this. They're constantly on the run and coming up with new ways to escape. I place these at the end of the timeline, but that doesn't really solve how the Pop-Tarts got from celebrities to warring revolutionaries desperate for freedom. One thing this timeline helps is a little continuity error I haven't brought up with Cherry. See, Cherry is a Pop-Tart that was a wife to Blueberry, but sadly one of the crazy kids got to her. Except we see her alive later after Blueberry sings a song about missing her. Except that later commercial is the kid cooking her. If you flip these around, it only proves the theory of a different timeline, but shows another long-running storyline simply in these commercials, but only apparent when you watch them with it in mind. These creators may actually have intended some of this, which is wild, not just because of what I've talked about so far, but what I'm about to get into. See, I think I found the reason the Pop-Tarts finally accepted their fate and began the revolution. Let me explain. At first, you might assume there's a clear timeline based on chronological order to these commercials. And you know, I would think the same until I realized the overwhelming evidence of a different, but way more clear timeline. There are many commercials scattered throughout the series of Pop-Tarts being celebrities and being tricked into believing they're equals. I'm gonna place these at the start of the timeline, with the only things behind it being the genie and anything where sentient Pop-Tarts definitely don't exist. Now, there are also commercials where the Pop-Tarts are definitely in the know about all of this. They're constantly on the run and coming up with new ways to escape. I place these at the end of the timeline, but that doesn't really solve how the Pop-Tarts got from celebrities to warring revolutionaries desperate for freedom. One thing this timeline helps is a little continuity error I haven't brought up with Cherry. See, Cherry is a Pop-Tart that was a wife to Blueberry, but sadly one of the crazy kids got to her. Except we see her alive later after Blueberry sings a song about missing her. Except that later commercial is the kid cooking her. If you flip these around, it only proves the theory of a different timeline, but shows another long-running storyline simply in these commercials, but only apparent when you watch them with it in mind. These creators may actually have intended some of this, which is wild, not just because of what I've talked about so far, but what I'm about to get into. See, I think I found the reason the Pop-Tarts finally accepted their fate and began the revolution. Let me explain. See, the first evidence of an actual revolution is in the hide-and-seek ads. This is a series about 4 to 5 ads. There are way more Pop-Tarts than we've ever seen before in one place, and when they spot a crazy kid, they instantly go hide. Except for one single Pop-Tart, the Ninja. Even the narrator, when closing the commercial, goes, "Not even I know who this secret fighting Pop-Tart is. Find out next time." I find this even more funny because the idea of watching a TV show and the commercial stops you and goes, "Hey, I know you probably want to watch your show, but like we also have a little story going on, so how about you watch next part of this commercial?" And you know, after watching so many, I agree, this is better than most TV. The Ninja is an anomaly in that he actually fights and wins against some of the kids and helps some Pop-Tarts escape. We then, in another commercial, find out that the Ninja is Vanilla Milkshake, but even in that one, he escapes. Now this is cool and all, and definitely is a sign of an early revolution and fighting back, but I said I found the reason this even began. Well, I did. All of it hiding inside the final commercial of the Survivor parody. In this commercial, we see a Pop-Tart who won the competition be put in a toaster because this world is evil. Except he manages to escape the toaster and get off this island, though his entire body being toasted. And you wanna know what makes this even crazier? The Pop-Tart that escaped is Vanilla Milkshake. The very Pop-Tart that survived being almost eaten went on to fight and lead the revolution as the Ninja. This Pop-Tart may be the very first to survive anything like this, and he told everyone. And finally, they believed him. At first, they did simple things. We see a Pop-Tart migrating to Ireland.
I'm off to a new land.
But the kids are there, so that didn't work. Then we see a hint at Pop-Tarts developing a rocket, and while it didn't work at first, we later see 2 new Pop-Tarts actually manage to get light years into space onto an entirely different planet, and they still get eaten.
Rancho?
The Pop-Tarts try and fail to escape their sad reality. This world gave them life, but that same world took it over and over. And the sad thing is, eventually, they accept it. If you look at modern commercials, whether it's the Super Bowl or random Instagram ads, the Pop-Tarts are not just letting themselves get eaten, they're begging for it. Kellogg has convinced them that their destiny is to die, and in their eyes, it's a perfect life because it's the only life they know.